Hello, 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 fight fans. It is me, Alec Carr, coming back at you with entering our new UFC season. It is 2023. It's weird saying that even. I'm riding solo at first. Monique will be joining us a little bit later. Um, we had some fights last weekend. Unfortunately, we were all a little busy. I was traveling for work and we just couldn't get a show together. But we knew we had to get a show together for you guys this week, headed into this weekend's fights. I'm so excited to talk about that. We got so many big headlines that we will definitely be getting into. We got Jones versus Gane, Francis Ngannou, Dana White slap, that piece of shit slapping his wife. We're gonna get into all of it. It might be the episode might run a little bit longer than the hour, but that's just because we're about to give you that fire content that we always give you with the headlines. I'm sure Dustin and I will get into it if he does join us. But this is week and it has been crazy with things flying out there. So I'll just start with our plugs, guys. As always, you can follow me at Alec Carr MMA. That's my personal Twitter. You can find my off the wall opinions. You can follow my Twitter, crazy Twitter fights that I get into about fighting, about the NFL, NBA. I'm not always right, but damn it, if I'm wrong, I'm gonna go down hard. And I love it. So please, guys, if you disagree with me about anything on this episode, please at me at Alicar MMA. You guys can also follow us for all of our updates at Fights Unwrapped on Twitter. It gives you all of our updates of when our shows are coming, if we have to reschedule, if one isn't coming. So make sure you follow that. And guys, you have to follow Unwrap Sports Network on Twitter. The content coming out of here is out of the sports network is just crazy. I mean, we got a little bit of everything now. It's absolutely great stuff. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Unwrap Sports Network YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that little bell so that you get all the reminders of all the shows coming out, because it's just every day. Every day there's crazy, awesome stuff coming out on the YouTube channel. And to get into we're going to dive into our promos right now because we got to pay the bills. Guys, and I say this every week, and I know you guys probably get tired of it, but if you're old and you're trying to work out like you're a young person still, you're going to want to go to rxhemp.com. This stuff is absolutely incredible. What's up, Monique? How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, thanks.
All right, you joined right as I was doing the promos. So guys, like I was saying, if you're old and you shouldn't be working out like you used to, but you still want to, make sure you're checking out rxhemp.com and use rxhemp-usn to get 10% off your entire order. I use the stuff that it's just great. It makes my mistakes in the gym go away, which is nice. And more importantly, Carlos Condit uses it. So if Carlos Condit is using it, the stuff is just great. So that's, again, rxhemp.com, rxhemp-usn to get 10% off your entire order. Make sure you visit mybookie.ag today. This weekend is going to be fucking nuts. It's going to be nuts with the fight cards. You got fight cards, NFL playoffs, boxing. You got all kinds of stuff happening this weekend. So if you're not visiting mybookie.ag, I don't know what you're doing, because if you use promo code USN100, they're gonna do 100% sign up bonus. So make sure you're checking it out. I know Monique. I know she's probably used up all of her promo codes, but I know Monique will definitely be on there making bets. So guys, again, crazy weekend in sports. So make sure you're visiting mybookie.ag today. All right, Monique. I prefaced everything by saying we have crazy, insane topics to get to. Let's get the sad, annoying one out of the way. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'd rather just get this one out of the way so we don't have to keep talking about it. Dana White slapping his wife. Monique, you and I are not afraid of hard topics. We never have been, and we never will be. We've done entire podcasts talking about racism in America. We've done entire podcasts talking about the Washington, at the time were still the Washington Redskins. So I want you to pull nothing back. How are you feeling about this? I know we're a little late to the game, guys, on this, but how are you feeling about this? I feel weird, but I want to go to you first and get your feelings and opinion on this whole thing.
Yeah, like for me, I see it with 2 points. So the first point is obviously there's no excuse for slapping a woman or in general slapping anybody, but especially a woman, especially someone that you call your wife. I mean, like I understand there was a lot of drinking involved, but the thing is like for me, I don't condone that. However, it was actually his wife that kind of started it. If you guys watch the video, she was the one that initiated it. So a lot of people, and I was talking to my partner about this, were saying like, why doesn't she get any flack for starting it? I'm like, you know what? I can see like both sides. I can see the fact that Dana White was not right to slap his wife, and he even said there was no excuses. And then also I can see the fact that, it was his wife that kind of started it, if you watch the video very closely. So it's like, they're both at fault for different reasons. What do you think, Alec?
I'm all twisted about this one.
Yeah.
I really am. And it doesn't have so much to do with his wife starting it, because he is the head of an MMA fight company. And you know this because you've done MMA and I've done MMA. The first thing you learn when you're learning a fight discipline is always find a way to walk away.
Yeah.
Like, find a way out. Like, that's the number one thing you always learn. It's the first lesson. We're going to teach you how to fight. But the first thing you have to always do when something happens is walk away. And if you can't get away, then yes, this will help you. So that's where I get a little twisted about it. Also, Dana White is a roided out monster. Like, even if his wife slapped him first, like, the slap that was in return was way stronger, way harder, not necessary at all. And I do agree to an extent that there is something about, she did start it, but he was at a nightclub. He could have easily left. He could have easily said, I'm not dealing with this. And that would have been the end of it. That would have been the easier solution. It's inexcusable, like you said. It's pathetic. It's sad. It's wrong. And I do think he should be punished. I think it should be a fine. I don't think he should be forced to step away. I think that's dumb. I do agree with him to an extent that if he does step away, it will hurt the fighters, because he is the guy that does everything. And he did that for a reason. He set it up that way for a reason. So if he does decide to step away, the UFC will be fucked. That's why it's set up like that. So he's not wrong in that. The other thing, though, that is weird to see is his apology tour.
Yeah.
He seems very genuine. He seems very disappointed in himself. And that he let it get to that far, which I'm going to say right now doesn't count for a lot, because it still happened. Like, hindsight's 2020, right? Saying I shouldn't have done it, now I got to live with it, is one thing. But you still shouldn't have done with it. Yeah, you got to live with it. And yeah, you probably feel like a shithead. And yeah, you've been a vocal person about domestic abuse, but you have never disciplined a fighter for it. So I'm all twisted up about it, Monique. On one hand, I want to say he's He looks like he learned that he is, doing what he needs to do. However, at the same time, he's not donating money to a charity. He's not taking action. He's not saying that, learning from this, I need to start taking a harder look at fighters who commit to domestic abuse. He's not doing any of those things. It feels like I don't want to say he's lying, because I do feel like he feels like shit. I do. But he's not doing anything either. So that's where I get all twisted about this. Like, if you're gonna say you feel like shit and you have to live with this now, you're a big disappointment in yourself. Great, do something though. Your actions will always speak louder than words. Do something. Pay for Dana White was valued at $1 billion recently. Pay for a women's shelter. You're richer than 99% of the athletes out there. Not just in the UFC, in all of fucking sports. Pay for a women's shelter. Have a shelter built in your name. Do something that shows you're actually sorry.
That's Dana White. He's all mostly talk. You've seen him with fighters and what he stands for, what he does, and he says that he's standing against domestic violence, but does he actually do anything about it? Not really. He's kind of half-assing this apology, right? So
yeah, another thing we should talk about too is fuck Dana White. First and foremost, fuck Dana White. I love you, Dana White. You created the UFC. You made it what it was today, and your business mind is so intriguing to me, because you're so far ahead of everybody else when it comes to the business of MMA. But also, fuck you at the same time, because you're a piece of shit. The other thing we need to talk about with this is the fact that people are saying Dana White needs to quit the UFC. That that if he doesn't, the PFL will catch him now with Jake Paul owning a portion of it. That's all bullshit, guys. Dana White doesn't need to step away from the UFC. The UFC needs him because, again, he set it up that way. Second of all, the UFC needs him until he decides to leave. Second of all, the UFC is not going anywhere. It is the king. They just released somebody. I just was reading somewhere and I was trying to pull it up again. I couldn't find it, but if I pull it up, I will share it on Twitter, guys. So make sure you look at it. It was an article stating the strength of promotions headed into 2023, but based off of financial gain this year, projected financial gain, and financial gain in 2021. The UFC is like fucking. The UFC, if they wanted to, could buy PFL, Bellator, and one championship right now and not blink an eye. That's how eye-opening that article was to me. They're billions of dollars ahead of everybody else. Jake Paul owning part of the PFL and starting his superweight division, his super fight division, is going to have no impact on PFL. It will have a small bump in their PPV buys. It all depends on what they price their PPV this year, though, because no one's spending $80 on a goddamn Jake Paul fight. But it might give them a small bump, but once people realize that he's just boxing in an octagon against old UFC fighters still, they're not going to give a shit, and the people aren't going to watch anymore. So ultimately, the Jake Paul deal is going to hurt PFL, and there's been a lot of people who have come out and saying that as well. It's not just me. So what do you think about that? Do you think Dana White needs to step away? Do you think the UFC needs him? Do you think the UFC is in danger?
Yeah, I definitely don't think the UFC is in danger. I think that Dana White has been able to, how do I say this? He's able to he's managed to avoid a lot of these situations where he says he's for something but he doesn't actually do it, and then people get upset because he doesn't actually take action, right? So I don't think the UFC's in danger, but I think his reputation's always been into question for me, And that's one thing that I will always like just think like, even though Dana White's really cool and he follows me and I really like that about him, but it's the fact that he doesn't really I don't think he wholeheartedly means what he says half the time, and that's very disgenuine. Even though this time he kind of, it feels like he means it, but he doesn't like take enough action to like say like, oh, I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna buy a women's shelter, I'm gonna do this, I'm going to take anger management classes, whatever it is, right? To actually, show people that he's human and he makes mistakes and he's learned from his mistakes. Now he doesn't do that, right? So I think that the fact that you talked about PFL and Jake Paul, I mean, like, honestly, like, I don't think the UFC's like it's very untouchable compared to the other organizations out there, like you said. And I don't think it's going to make much of a difference because PFL is PFL. They're not really up there. They're kind of like in the middle of the pack, I feel like, maybe not even. So, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. But it's not going to hurt the UFC brand. It's just going to hurt Dana White as a person, like his reputation. That's what I think personally.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to hurt his reputation in the long run either. I think in 3 weeks we'll all forget about it. Well, you and I won't forget about this, but most of MMA Twitter, who we have a love-hate relationship with, we'll all forget about this and we'll move on to the next thing. And that's what it will be, because the next thing is actually, we'll talk about it last in our headlines. But the next thing is coming up. We're going to talk about it because that's going to be huge leading into it. But first, we have to talk about this before we get to that. Francis Ngannou finally gets released by the UFC. Monique, I have a lot.
You're gonna rant. I know you're gonna rant. Okay.
I am. So I don't know if you want to go first, just to kind of get it out of the way, because I have a lot.
Yeah,
I have a lot. So I'll
go first. Yeah.
I'll pass it off to you while I pull up my articles. Okay.
Yeah. Here's the thing. We talked about Francis Ngannou constantly throughout this this little podcast / stream of ours, and it's always been like he wants more money, but he doesn't market himself. He doesn't do anything. He fights maybe once a year. Some champions, if they want money, they want more money, they'll fight more times a year. Like Charles do Bronx Oliveira is one of those people that fights like, I don't know, 3-4 times a year, right? And Francis Ngannou doesn't do that. He doesn't really do anything to make the company want to pay him. Now there are people that I've talked to that are MMA fans that say like, you know what? It's not necessarily like a fair thing where like people are in the UFC there to fight, but the thing is, like, when I argue Francis Ngannou doesn't really fight that much, and he doesn't, people say like, you know what, the people, like the fighters that fight a lot and they win, they should get more money, which I agree with. I totally agree with. We always talk about fighter pay in the show all the time, and that's just one of those things that everybody kind of agrees that the UFC fighters should get paid more. Now, it's kind of like they should get paid more, but at the same time, they should work for it. And I feel like Francis Ngannou doesn't do that. Now, he's brought up some good points about sponsorship that a lot of people, I know you're probably going to get into this, Alec. They're gonna talk about this. They're going to say like, oh, he brought up some good points, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, it's just like, I don't think he put in the work to earn that much money. And it was a lot of money. It was offered, I believe it was $2.5 million or something, right? Or even more than that. I thought it was 2.5 million, but I guess it's more than that. And I think that he should have been grateful. At the same time, I'm kind of glad he's released because like I kind of want to see what we're talking about next, obviously, which I'm very, very excited about. But we're not going to go to that yet. We're going to talk about this now. Alec, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. So I'm going to change it to, or you already changed it, to Alec's rant of the week. So go ahead. Tell me how you feel about him getting released, or people say he turned down the UFC.
First, before I do that, I gotta strap in so I don't, get up and start yelling and running around. So just give me a second.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So he was on Ariel Helwani's show.
Boo.
talking about this.
Yeah.
Ariel Helwani said they said they were going to make you the highest paid heavyweight of all time. Brock Lesnar made $8 million. Is that what you were $8 million for his championship fight? Is that around what you were expecting? And is that what they offered? And he said he didn't say yes. He didn't say no. So let's just go ahead and play this out. Let's just say, because there is a huge language barrier for Francis Ngannou. He doesn't speak English that well. He does. Let me rephrase that. He does for somebody who doesn't. It's not their first language. So there is that. So I don't know if he fully understood the question. So let's just say the reported number is the 2.5 million, right? Let's just say that. That makes him the highest paid athlete in UFC history by base number alone. That's more than Izzy. That's more than Conor. That's more than Jose Aldo. It's more than Dustin, Kamaru Usman. It's more than any other UFC athlete has ever made on a base salary, ever. And he confirmed that the UFC agreed to a 3-fight deal. So he got what he wanted. He got the most expensive contract. He got the 3-fight deal. Part of that fight was a 2-fight deal with John Jones. So they would fight and do an immediate rematch no matter the outcome of the fight. So he got everything he wanted. And he still had problems with it. He asked for a sponsorship. I am so sick and tired of this bullshit that fighters peddle out there. And I'm going to preface this before I go really, really insane on Francis Ngannou, because I haven't even started yet, Monique. All fighters deserve a fuck ton more money. 10 by 10 contracts are a fucking joke. All fighters deserve health insurance. All fighters deserve long-term care benefits. They all deserve that shit. I 100% agree with that. And I would never say otherwise. But I want to say this. Francis Ngannou is the perfect fucking example of not having, and I've said it over and over and over again, of not having real representation, of having a UFC-approved manager. Now, they're not officially approved, but he is a UFC-approved manager, meaning the UFC likes to deal with him because he cuts backdoor deals with the UFC so that the fighters get less money and he gets more money. The fighters need to get actual agencies, actual representation to negotiate these fucking contracts. You have you and your manager going in there asking if it's okay to go to have a sponsorship. You don't need to ask that. You're a fucking 1099 employee. Go out and get the goddamn sponsorship. Now, if he was expecting the UFC to give him a sponsorship, that's not how any fucking pro sport works in the entire world. That is not how it works. The UFC doesn't just go, here you go. Here's a new sponsorship for you. You already get the fucking Venom deal. You already get everything that's on the Octagon. And you already have the Monster deal, which are all undisclosed earnings, by the way. Like the UFC is not just going to say here's another endorsement that we don't for a company we don't deal with. Conor McGregor has endorsements that aren't part of the UFC. Paddy Pimblett has endorsements that aren't part of the UFC. Dustin Poirier has endorsements that aren't part of the UFC. Do I need to go on? All these fighters are already doing it. You can do it. Go out there. He has made over $3 million in the past 3 years. Go out there and start a fucking company. Buy a company. Do something. If you want more endorsements, go get them your own goddamn self. Stop. The fighters need to stop relying on Ali and these other managers that tell them, oh, you can't go get that without asking Uncle Dana first. Yes, you can. You are a 1099 employee. That's why you have to pay your own benefits, because you are a 1099 employee. So go out there and get your own fucking sponsorship. Stop relying on the UFC for everything. The other thing that he mentioned was this whole thing where Francis Ngannou is all of a sudden this all-loving UFC fighter that cares about the young fighters. Bullshit. You are full of shit. Nowhere in your history until this interview have you ever talked about that. Not once Come on, man. I looked it up. You mentioned it once a little bit ago, but you have never been an advocate for equal fighter pay. Ever. Never, ever, ever, never have you said anything on a consistent basis about fighter pay. You are full of shit, dude. And for you to come out and start spewing these lies hurts the goddamn cause. It really does, because you want to know what? You chose not to be in the UFC. You chose it. You chose not to be in the UFC because you think the grass is greener on the other side. You could go to PFL, but guess what? You're not getting an $2.5 to $8 million 3-fight contract with PFL. You're going to get a chance for $1 million once a year on a 5-year deal. But that's how they work. Bellator, same thing, except they'll probably try to lock you into a 10-year deal. And those sponsorships, guess what? And I've said it before, they don't pay out every time. They have ridiculous lettering and wording that says if you don't win by knockout and by the second minute of the fourth round, you no longer qualify for payment. This whole idea that the grass is greener outside of the UFC, it's just not true. It's only true for the guys that are old and washed that don't get paid by the UFC because they're old and washed. Why would Anthony Pettis get paid by the UFC? He's not a contender in the UFC. He can't compete with the high-level competition anymore. I'm so sick and tired of these guys that advocate going elsewhere. It hurts the cause of fighter pay, and you're hurting it for also PFL, Bellator, and One Championship too. You are. You might not realize it, but when you say the UFC is not paying you good enough, the guys in the other fucking promotions are making 10 times less. So just stop. Just stop it. Stop it with this bullshit. And if he wants to, what Dana White was talking about, and this whole rhetoric, right, that these fucking morons are putting out there, that Dana White said that he wants to go fight lesser competition. I will say Dana White did say that, but if you're taking it out of context, what he's saying is he wants to fight lesser competition for a chance of more money, meaning he wants to go fight Tyson Fury and get his ass kicked for 3 rounds for a $20 million payday and then never fight again. Fine, let him. That's what Dana White's saying. Go ahead, do it. If that's what you want to do, if you want a big payday and you've already shown you have no business acumen, you wear fucking $5,000 suits to every weigh-in you show up to, you've shown that you can't save money, period. Go ahead, go make that $20 million. You're burned through it in a day. Like Francis Ngannou is I'm sorry, guys. I love him. I love his story. I love watching him as a fighter. The way he wrestled Ciryl Gane was absolutely fucking incredible. It shocked me. I'm still shocked. I can't believe it happened. And the way he showed his wrestling technique was like, it was good. It like the guy has talent for days. His fight IQ is ridiculously high, but he's a moron. Like he's lying to you, and these people are believing it. Like the guy won't give a straight answer about anything, and now is starting to, in interviews, take it to this, well, I wanted insurance for all fighters, so when they didn't offer that, I left the negotiating table. Bullshit. And if that's really what it was, that is not the best way. You don't bring up essentially player union bullshit when you're in personal contract negotiations. That is neither the time nor the place to bring that up. And you know that. Like you know that, Francis Ngannou, you just know that. So then if you did bring it up, either you knew you were going to bring it up and get turned down, so you had an excuse to get out of there, or two, you are just not as smart as people think you are, and you're just a moron. If you want stuff like insurance for all fighters, you don't bring it up here. You bring it up in every goddamn social media platform you have. You bring it up in every goddamn interview you have, and you bring it up constantly. You don't bring it up in your negotiations. You're negotiating your contract. Like, that's just dumb. Monique, and I'll end with this, because my rant has gone on and on and on, and we're almost 30 minutes into the show, and I just realized that. Monique, when you go into your contract negotiations with your job, and they lay out them, well, you're from Canada, so it's a little different, but they lay out all your benefits and stuff. You go, okay, and you don't say, well, after they give you your proposal, you don't say, well, I really want everyone to have better insurance. You would never say that. It doesn't make any sense. I just did contract negotiations in my previous job. You don't bring it up there. If you think there's an institutional problem with the workplace that you're in, you bring it up in other ways. You don't bring it up in your personal bullshit. That's just stupid. It's asinine. Francis Ngannou, if he brought it up, was looking for an out. He was looking for a way to blame the UFC for everything and get out of there. And we can get into why on a different podcast, but I will ultimately say it, and I'll end with this. He does not want to fucking fight Jon Jones. That's it. That's the end of the story. He does not want to fight Jon Jones and ruin his reputation. And that's the only thing that makes sense, because the contract negotiations that he had before broke down because he asked for, and this is public record and you can look it up, it's fact. He asked for $15 million to fight Jon Jones last time, and that's why the contract broke down the first time. It wasn't anything the UFC said. The UFC has never paid anything close to $15 million on a base contract, and they aren't even close to doing that now. So, again, this whole thing is bullshit. Fuck Francis Ngannou. And people need to wake up and realize guys like him are ruining the conversation for equal fighter pay. They are. They're killing it. They're not helping at all. They're not. I could keep going, Monique, but I'm going to stop.
Okay.
Okay. Whew. So, after that, there's not much to talk about with this one.
Yay!
But it is
That's
very
so
exciting. Jon Jones is back. He is back after this whole Francis bullshit that I could go on for probably an hour uninterrupted on, Monique. After all the dust settled, Francis Ngannou, Ciryl Gane was announced. Jon Jones, Ciryl Gane was announced. And I am just so happy. And I've been talking for a while, and I'm sure people want to hear you. So, Monique, go ahead and you talk about this.
Dude, okay. I am beyond excited for this fight. I even told Dustin and you that I'm planning to go to this fight live because it's going to be one hell of a fucking card. This fight is amazing. It is full of skill and technique and seeing who is going to be better on the feet, who's going to be wrestling somebody else. Like, I just can't wait. I don't know really what's going to happen in this fight. I have an idea of what I think is going to happen. Here's the thing. Ciryl Gane kind of exposed himself in his last match when he got out wrestled by Francis Ngannou. Now, the same thing could possibly happen in this fight because Jon Jones is just very well-rounded. Even though there's a lot of stuff that has happened to him over the last few years, he is still one of my favorite fighters. I still believe he is one of the best, if not the best, in that division right now. I can totally see that. I'm excited to see tickets. By the way, people go out on Friday. If anybody's interested in seeing this fight live, it's going to be expensive, but it's probably going to be worth it. So just letting you guys know on access.com. Anyways, point is that I just can't wait to see what happens because this is a very, very skillful, technical, tactical fight IQ kind of fight. And it's my kind of fight. This is what I've been waiting for a long time. Like, fuck Francis Ngannou. This is the fucking fight. Right now, and it could easily be fight of the year, and we just started. This fight is taking place March 4th. Everybody watch out because this card is going to be amazing. That's all I gotta say. Alucard, it's your turn.
Yeah, and you guys know they always stack Jon Jones's big cards, so they're going to stack this up. I know his previous ones were shitty, but let's be honest, he was fighting shitty talent. No one wants to see, and we love Santos here. We do. We love him, but no one Jon Jones Santos really move the needle for anybody. I know Santos put up a really good fight against him, but like, does that really move the needle for anyone? Like, anyway, it's just, it doesn't make those didn't make any sense. I hope they stack the shit out of this card. There are rumors swirling that, one, Conor McGregor could be ready for March. And it's always been a prayer of mine that we get to see the two greatest shit talkers in UFC history on the same card together, because they are really good friends too. So they'd be hanging out together all week. The fucking pre-fight, like, promotional videos with the two of them would be fucking hilarious. It would be such a show to have both of them on the card. And then you get to the fight itself. I mean, this on paper, Monique, is the greatest heavyweight fight in UFC and in MMA history. This is the greatest heavyweight. This is fucking Frazier Ali. That's what this is. And people better fucking recognize it. This is a huge deal. I know Jon Jones has never fought a heavyweight, but the guy is a fucking monster. He's weighing 275 pounds now, Monique. He's huge. He's a monster. He's got a longer reach than Stefan Struve. Like, this guy is a stud. He's probably still, I don't doubt, yeah, even though he's had years off at this point, I think he's going to come in with no problem. He's been training. He's been training a lot of wrestling lately too. So, his ground game is on top. He's been in Cejudo's fight camp. Like, he's been active. He's still very active. So, and then you got Cyril Gane, who's just another monster in the other corner who can just pick you apart from his feet. This fight's going to be crazy. I got Jon Jones winning it because ultimately Jon Jones is we're talking about the guy that beat fucking Dan Henderson in a grappling match. Like that's who we're talking about. We're talking about the guy that's an elite level wrestler and elite level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all in one. We're talking about a guy that was essentially a Sambo practicer before Sambo was mainstream. Like this is a high level black belt, high level wrestler. His grappling game is insane. His Muay Thai is crazy. And I got in a Twitter fight a little bit ago who was somebody who thought Jon Jones's kickboxing technique was horrible. That just blew my mind, which doesn't make any sense. He's one of the best kickboxers we've ever seen in UFC history. This is a guy that is just – he's the GOAT. He's the fucking GOAT, Monique, is what I'm saying. So at the end of the day, I'm going with the GOAT because I think Jon Jones will secure that victory.
Yeah, I am excited because if Conor is going to be on that card, if I go and watch that live, I will be watching Conor McGregor and Jon Jones. What a fucking big deal that would be. Oh, I hope the rumors are true, man. I really hope so. You
got to let me know what the price is, because if it's $1,000 for a ticket, expect Conor McGregor to be on the card.
Yeah, I bet if it's gonna be like $1,000, I'm gonna be like, you know what? I'll just watch it at a bar with one of my friends. But like, if anybody is planning on going, you guys can hit me up at Monique Yip. I'm always down to meet everybody from MMA Twitter, like in real life. I think everybody's super cool. The ones that we don't get into fights with. But even if you wanna, get into a little bit of a discussion with me and Alec, we have our Twitter handles somewhere on the stream if you take away the actual topic. But if you want to have a squabble with us, especially talking about Jon Jones' kickboxing, like, that guy is just amazing on the feet. He's amazing everywhere. That's why he's my GOAT. That's why he's my favorite fighter. And I personally cannot wait to see this card. Now, Alec, I'm budgeting like $200 and $250 for a ticket, so I probably won't get the best seats. But you know what? I think it's worth it to see, the people that I consider GOATs in the MMA community. But anyways, that's just my spiel.
And I love all the people that come back at me on Twitter. And you know that. It's all in good fun. It's just sometimes people say some off-the-wall shit like TJ Dillashaw is a better striker than Jon Jones.
Oh, anyway, my God.
Anyway, we don't have to rehash my Twitter arguments because we have a fucking fight card to talk about.
Hell yeah.
Yes, we do. UFC 283 is coming up. The Prelims are crazy. It is the first PPV of the year. There are some prelims that don't make any sense that they're a prelim, of course, because it wouldn't be the UFC with a guy like Gregory Rodriguez, who should be on the main card, on the prelim, or a guy like Terrence McKinney, who should be on the on the main card, on the prelim. So, guys, make sure you tune into this entire fucking fight. I know prelims can be hard to watch sometimes. I know fucking 10 hours of fights can be hard to watch sometimes, but just have it on your phone, have it on in the background, because you're going to see that Terrence McKinney and Gregory Rodriguez on the prelims, who are two of the fastest rising stars in the UFC right now, and two absolute studs. So make sure you guys are tuning in for that. With that being said, we got the main card to talk about, and it opens up with not so exciting of a fight. Which this should be Gregory Rodriguez versus Bruno Ferreira, because Bruno Ferreira, though I think he's making his UFC debut, let me just make sure of that. Yeah, because he was on Contender Series, so not technically his debut, but his pro UFC debut. Is 9-0, and he's fighting Gregory Rodriguez, and that would be the fight that makes more sense to be on the main card, but it's not. So we're going to be forced to talk about Paul Craig and Johnny Walker. So, Monique, I don't know what to do with this fight. I don't give a shit about either of these overrated fighters. What do you think?
Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna lie. I was one of those like bandwagon girls that used to like Paul Craig, because he was a jiu-jitsu guy, right? And I love my jiu-jitsu guys. Everybody knows that. And then just like the last few fights has just been disappointing. And Johnny Walker, I'm not very fond of him. But he surprised me in his last matchup, so that's why he has Paul Craig right now. I don't know what's going to happen. I would love to see a Paul Craig submission. I love seeing him do his thing, especially those leg locks. Those are deadly. Johnny Walker should watch out for that. But on the feet, it might be a little bit of a different story. I might just bend the knee and say Paul Craig for his submission. I would love to see one. That's the only reason why I'm picking him, because I would love to see a submission. That's literally all. That's the only reason why I'm picking him in this fight.
I just need to know why Paul Craig is ranked above the guy he lost to in his last fight.
Yeah, I remember that.
Paul Craig is ranked above Volkan Ozdemir, and he lost to him in Paul Craig's last fight. Like, how is Volkan Ozdemir not ranked above Paul Craig? Anyway, I've always been a big hater of Paul Craig and a non-believer. I'm going to go with Johnny Walker, just because he's got a lot to prove. If this fight goes to the ground, Johnny's going to be in trouble. But I just think Johnny Walker needs to step up to heavyweight, because he's fucking huge.
Yeah, he's huge.
He's got no business being in light heavyweight. He's a fucking monster. He's a giant human being, and he just there are guys that can really fuck you up on the ground in the light heavyweight division. So, and he doesn't stand a chance against those guys. So he needs to step up in weight class. But I think he gets this done. Paul Craig, his entire thing was built off of that surprising Jamal Hill victory. Jamal Hill was really dumb in that fight and admitted so, which is why he's fighting for a championship. It's why he's fighting for a championship later on. So I don't believe in Paul Craig. I think he was a little overhyped. And I think Johnny Walker gets a KO in this fight. All right, we're moving on. I wish Dustin was here so he could yell at me.
Okay, let's go. I am going to introduce a new segment that Dustin is going to love. I call it Baywatch, because there are bays in the UFC that are surprisingly single. Now, this is for Dustin, even though, Dustin, I wish you were watching this. Tracy Cortez is not dating Brian Ortega anymore. Mackenzie Dern is single. That's all I have to say. Anyways, we're moving on.
Go get him, Dustin.
I know, right?
All right, so we are moving on to a much more exciting fight. We got Lauren Murphy versus Jessica Andrade. I'm gonna let you go first again. I probably know how you're feeling about this fight, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you go first and talk about Andrade versus Murphy.
Here's my thing, okay? I like both of them for different reasons. Laura Murphy, I feel like is so like nobody really knows about her too much because she's not like she's not as famous as Jessica Andrade, you know. Obviously didn't carry a title before, but she does have some skill and she's very powerful. The thing is with Andrade is that Andrade is very quick, you know, she's really good when it comes to boxing. Obviously, she's super strong for her size, which I think might be a disadvantage to her because Lauren Murphy is obviously, you can tell she's bigger, she's stronger than her. That might be a problem in this fight. But I think Andrade is technically better than her. Like, I think, like, overall, she's technically a better fighter. But like I said, Lauren Murphy has that power, and that might be a problem. But I'm gonna go with Andrade. No offense to Lauren Murphy, it's just I think she's the better fighter. I think she can hit hard as well. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Lauren Murphy beating Misha Tate tells me nothing.
Exactly.
Like, so
that's why nobody
I mean,
knows her.
Misha Tate had no business being. It was apparent in that fight. Misha Tate had no business being in the octagon, and Misha Tate thought she was going to win and go get the title, which is just crazy.
Delusional, man. Delusional. That's what it is.
And Jessica Andrade. I mean, we're talking about. This is the same person that's only lost to Valentina Shevchenko, Rose Namajunas, and Weili Zhang. Like, what are we talking about here? This is one of the top women fighters in the entire world. Like, I think she gets this done. I think she's riding high off of that, you know, first and only standing arm triangle choke we've ever seen in UFC. That was just she won submission of the year. Of course she won submission of the year because the one and only is a big deal. So I think she just gets this done because, like you said, she's just better. She's just Mara Murphy's the bigger one. Her only defense though is gonna be to hopefully keep Andrade on the outside. But we're talking about the same person that got in the Valentina fight, was able to get inside Valentina. In the Rose Namajunas fight, the split decision, she was able to get inside on Rose. Like, that's insane.
Yes.
like Rose is an incredible striker. So to be able to get inside, she lost the fight, but she was able to get inside and make that fight a fight. So I think Andrade takes this pretty easily.
Okay, I have to say this because this is hilarious. So, lesbian Baywatch, Jessica Andrade is single, people. She is not married anymore to her wife. Anyways, keep going.
Well, we treat everybody equally here, so I'm glad you did that.
Yes.
All right, so this is, I am super pumped for this next fight. We got Gilbert Burns back versus Neil Magny. I am so excited to watch Gilbert Burns come back. The last time we saw him was that ridiculous Khamzat Chimaev fight. I mean, absolutely insane. Some media outlets had that as fight of the year. Like, that fight was just crazy. Where Gilbert Burns is the one and only man to ever rock Khamzat Chimaev. Granted, he got rocked right back. Like, that fight was absolutely insane. And since losing that fight, which he did lose that fight. There are a few people who say he didn't, but Gilbert Burns pretty much has said, guys, I lost that fight. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I lost to the better fighter that night. That is like Gilbert Burns fighting Neil Magny. He's been so disrespected since losing against Khamzat. I'm so pumped to have him back. I think he takes this. I think he does it pretty easily. We're talking about the guy that was the number 2 contender in the welterweight division and was the number one contender in the welterweight division at one point. We're talking about the guy that and again, I wish Dustin was on here to yell at me, that Kobe Covington is refusing to fight. We're talking about the guy that has everybody but Hazmat and Kamaru Usman, and maybe Leon Edwards. Everybody else doesn't want to fight him. So, like, no, I think he gets this done pretty easily. I don't really know how. I just think that I don't think this fight will go to the distance. I think Gilbert Burns will end with a finish, whether it be submission, TKO, or KO. I don't know. But I do think we see this over in like the beginning of the third, end of the second. Monique, what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see Gilbert Burns back. I missed him. Neil Magny, I never really liked Neil Magny. I know he has some skill, what's called, probably on the ground, but compared to Gilbert Burns, he has no chance. And also, I think Gilbert Burns is just like, he's the stronger man. He can probably, knock him out. I can see that happening pretty easily, just because his striking has just become so impeccable. Everybody used to know him for his jiu-jitsu, and now like his striking has evolved into something so useful for him, and he has, I think, the better fight IQ, even though Neil Magny is not one to be overlooked, but I still think that Gilbert Burns probably going to get it done. We'll see what happens. Like I said, Neil Magny is not one person that you should overlook as a fighter. So if he gets it done, I wouldn't be super surprised, but I will definitely be disappointed. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I love this whole persona Neil Magny is bringing on himself of just being like, I'll be the guy that fights anybody. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, he's the guy that took the Shavkat fight when no one wanted to fight him. Like that's just who he is now, which is great because he's never going to win a championship. But if you continue to take these fights on that no one else will take, you will make a great living in the UFC. Yeah. A great living. So yeah, that's good. I don't know how to feel about this next one. Part of me wants to be excited. Part of me really wants to be excited for Figgy versus Moreno. Part 4. The first Part 4 in UFC history. That's the marketing behind it. But I don't know why I can't, Monique. I just can't get there with this fight.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hopefully you talk me into it. Though you don't sound that excited either.
Well,
so
okay.
what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, the reason why I'm not too excited about Part 4 is because, like, honestly, I feel like they're holding up the division. I feel like there are a few contenders out there, a few of them that disappointed us a little bit, but I just feel like, it's just like we're seeing this fight again. Not the second time, not the third time, but the fourth time. And it's just like, it feels like a rerun. I feel like I know what's going to happen. I feel like Figgy has, like, just figured out Moreno and, like, what he does. And he knows how to get to him. He knows how to, strike with him, even get him to the ground sometimes. But obviously you don't want to be on the ground with Moreno. He has impeccable BJJ skills. But it's just, I feel like the reason why we're not excited is because we're watching the same thing happen again, and I feel like there's no surprises that are going to happen in this fight, and that's probably the reason why you feel that way, Alec Carr.
Probably. And the fact that this whole fight hinges upon Figgy's weight cut.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing. Like, if Figgy has a great weight cut and everything goes smoothly, he's winning this fight again. Like, he did enough in the last fight. Like, that was a decisive victory for Figgy. Like,
yes.
Like, it was pretty easily scored, and like, no one said Moreno won. Like there was no controversy whatsoever. For me, and a lot of people are like, well, it didn't end in a finish, so therefore there should be a rematch. I think that's bullshit with guys that little, because there aren't a lot of those fights. Just because Figgy has a lot of knockouts for a flyweight doesn't mean he's going to do it every time. And knockouts as a flyweight is extremely difficult to do. One, these guys are fucking 125. Their stamina is crazy. Like absolutely insane. A lot of these guys at 125 could probably fight for 10 rounds. Like that's how crazy it is, and that matters in knockouts. So it's just, I don't think this fight is happening. And you brought up a very good. I don't think this fight should be happening, and you brought up a very good point that the flyweight division is so fucking good right now. Like let's get Brandon Royval up there, Kai Kara-France, Pantoja, Nicolo, Alex Perez. Like this, Emmanuel Kopp is ranked 8th. Like this, what are we doing here, guys? You have all these fighters. Let's get these young. Can you hear me, Monique?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was trying to mute myself, but
Yeah, yeah. I'll just end with this. Let's get Brandon Royval a title shot. He deserves one. Let's get Kai Kara-France a title shot. He deserves one. Mateus a title shot. Like let's get these guys. Emmanuel Kopp. Let's have him fight Alex Perez. Like let's go. The flyweight division is more marketable than it's ever been, and you're losing out on it because of the old-timey feeling that little guy fights don't sell. And that's bullshit. We all saw Henry Cejudo. We also we all witnessed that. Like that didn't just not happen. So little guy fights do sell. They can headline main cards. You just got to believe in them and market them. All right. Got to move on to our main event of the evening. We have Glover Teixeira versus Jamahal Hill. Again, I am super excited for this fight. Don't get me wrong, Monique. I am so excited for this fight, but it just reminds me that we're not going to see Yuri Prochazka for about a year. Like that's all this fight does. In the back of my head, I am so excited and thrilled, and when this fight comes on, I'm going to be amped. I'll probably be out of my seat because that's how I typically watch fights. But in the back of my head, in the front of my head, it's just telling me that we're not going to see Yuri Prochazka for a whole year.
Yeah,
which just makes me sad. Watching the last title, quote unquote title fight versus Ankalaev and Yan just shows how far ahead he is in that division as far as skill wise goes. I understand he had a close fight with Glover Teixeira. I don't think he expected Glover to be as good on the feet as he was, and I think he was kind of shocked by that, because we saw that Yuri was well prepared for Glover's ground game as he rolled out of many bad positions. But that being said, this fight is fucking awesome, and I need to get piped for it. So, Monique, tell me and other people who feel like me why this fight is so exciting.
I mean, here's the thing. You have the old generation versus the new generation. That's why it's exciting. You have someone who is a master on the ground, pretty much facing someone who is pretty good at standing up. Not the best, but pretty good. And the reason why I want to see this fight happen is because I want to see Glover Teixeira win one more fight and then retire. That's literally why I want to see this fight. I don't want to see him go for the title because, I mean, it's important, but I mean, it's Yuri's time, and Yuri's just, injured right now. So, I don't know. I'm excited just to see the outcome of this fight because there's different fight styles that are happening, and there's different generations that are fighting. So, it's always a plus for me when I see that.
Yeah, I got Glover in this fight for sure, just so you know. Like, I think at the end of the day, it is almost impossible to knock out Glover Teixeira. It is, let alone knock him out. It is so hard to even knock him down. And when you think you have him is when he puts you in a chokehold and you fall asleep. And Jamahal, Hill, we already saw him struggle against Paul Craig. Yes, he made a mistake, but still, like, you're fighting against a much. Paul Craig is great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Don't get me wrong. Glover Teixeira is right on the same level as Du Bronx. Like,
Yep.
we're talking about some of the greatest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu we have ever seen, not just best right now that we have ever seen. And I think Hill is going to struggle with that. I think he'll struggle with Glover. Glover has a way of clinching that's like, it reminds me of Wanderlei Silva, right? Where he can just put you on the cage and ride you until he can take you down.
Yep.
And like he can just gas you out on the cage alone. So Hill's got a lot of work to do to keep Glover away. And the other thing is too, Hill doesn't really have a size advantage here, so it's not like he can keep him on the outside. And Glover showed how good of a striker he was against Yuri, and that is something that he has continued to improve upon even into his 40s. So, like, I just don't see a path to victory for Hill unless Hill's got to come out fast, and he's got to come out quick, and he's got to land something big. He's got to land a big combo real quick that doesn't necessarily rock Glover, but makes Glover go, I don't know if I want to. I'm going to try to take him down. That's my goal now.
Yeah, for sure.
Other than that, I think Glover wins. Who do you think wins this fight?
Oh, for sure, Glover. No doubt, man. I just think he's just technically better, and I think that if it goes to the ground, which I think it will, he's just gonna dominate, which he always does. And Hill's like all right of a fighter. Like, I don't really dislike him, but I don't really like him either. You know, I don't think he's honestly that special. He's had a few great fights, but still, like, I think that Glover just has the better fight IQ. At the end of the day, he's the better fighter. He's the tougher fighter, in my opinion. No offense to Hill. Like you said, there's no way you're gonna knock him down.
No one's tougher than Glover. That's no offense. If Hill got offended by that, he has no idea who he's stepping in the octagon with, and he's probably going to get his ass whipped.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I think that Glover's going to win. I think he's going to win by submission. I would love to see him submit Hill. I love to see Glover win, but at the same time, I know he's super close to the end of his career, and I think he knows that too. So, we'll see what happens after.
We'll see, because we're gonna watch on Saturday, but we'll see. The other thing that's really important too is he was just in a battle with one of the toughest motherfuckers in the world, Yuri Prochazka, a 5-round battle in that fight. So we'll see how somebody his age responds to that. He might, he turned down the Ankalaev fight for a reason.
Yeah,
he was offered Ankalaev for the fight for the championship, and he turned it down. And I love Glover, but I think part of him was like, I still need time to recover. I'm old. I'm old as shit.
Yeah, he's like 42 or something like
that. Right.
Yeah.
And that was, both of those guys got their asses whooped. So we'll see what happens. On a side note, Yuri Prochazka is out running fucking on the mountains in Poland. So hopefully he's back. Like, literally, he's running up and down. He's posting videos and pictures of him sprinting up and down mountains. So hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later, and we don't have to wait a whole year. But other than that, that's our fight week this week, guys. Next week we got Lewis versus Spivak, which we will certainly attempt to talk about. The card has Jung Young and Devin Clark on it, as well as Marcin Tybura. It's much to do about nothing card, but we will certainly be talking about it next week. The prelims are rather exciting because there's a lot of young people, so at least it has that. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Happy fight week, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
Bye, everybody.